Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to our presentation. So you're in the right room if you are looking for telehealth and face-to-face interventions for youth and families. And we are happy that you are joining us today. So we're going to start off with some introductions. So my name is Caitlin. I am currently a graduate student at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and I am in my third year of the program. So I'm currently working in my fieldwork portion. So I'll be graduating this August. I do want to preface that my practicum and my internship, I have been working with youth and families, children aged from about 5 to 17 years old. So I look forward to this presentation with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dallas, and I am also a student at the Chicago School. I'm in my third year, and I'm currently doing my field work at a child center. So I work with kids from 2 up until 18. Similar to Caitlin, we both are working with kids, and but all these interventions that we will be talking about have been useful for us in working with our clients. So we hope that you guys learn a lot and are able to use these interventions with your own clients. So here is the agenda of what we'll be covering in our presentation. We'll be providing various telehealth and face-to-face interventions for different age groups based on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. The stages we'll be focusing on are pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Then we will move in and discuss filial therapy and what benefits using this modality. We will then end with some challenges to consider in telehealth and face-to-face sessions, and we'll cover different obstacles as well. And then lastly, we'll have an activity called What's in Your Heart, and this activity can be used in telehealth and face-to-face sessions.
All right, so as Dallas mentioned, we are using Piaget's stages of cognitive development. So we didn't cover the sensory motor since that's aged like around newborn to 2 years old. Mainly our fieldwork clients have been about 2 and up, but I did want to cover the sensory motor. So this begins at birth and continues through the child's first 2 years of life. It focuses on the development of schemata through perceptions and bodily movements. So the sensory motor involves 6 stages within that first stage itself. And the culmination of all of these stages of that period is the child's understanding of object permanence and the ability to abstract that objects do have an existence independent of the child's reaction with them. So like peekaboo or hiding an object underneath a piece of paper or a blanket and realizing, oh, hey, it's still there when I lift this up. So classic examples are just a couple of examples that I had mentioned, but also like when a parent leaves the room, they start realizing, hey, where'd my mom go? Oh, she's coming back, like in and out of the room. The parent, they're noticing that the parent is continuing to exist, even though they're not in the room itself. So if you like walk out of a room and say, hey, now I'm in the kitchen, they're starting to realize that, oh, they're still there. So that's a little bit on the sensory motor stage. So also to mention, when we talk about the interventions, I, for my fieldwork experience, have been working with children through the telehealth platform. My site, due to COVID, has not been able to conduct services in person. So I have done all of my sessions over telehealth. So I have learned a ton about engaging with children and youth and teens over the telehealth platform. So I will be covering those interventions. And then Dallas, her site is face-to-face, so she will be covering face-to-face interventions. Okay, so the preoperational stage. So the preoperational stage is children aged 2 to 7. So that's a pretty long time span, about 5 years. So this is where their imagination is very strong and they begin to think symbolically and learn to use words or pictures to represent objects. So I know that a lot of people teach their children sign language starting at this age, you know, for milk or more. They're starting to recognize those symbols mean words, or even putting magnets on the fridge with a glass of milk or with an apple or applesauce, so they can point to it because they know, oh, if I point to this, you know, that's a glass of milk. So children at this stage also tend to be egocentric. So definitely always thinking about themselves. And they struggle to see things from perspective of others. So overall, they tend to think about things in concrete terms. And during this age period, the child is gradually learning how to manage their feelings because feelings are new for them. They haven't experienced them before. I mean, they have, but they haven't had cognitive recognition of them. So now during this time, they're really trying to learn, hey, what am I feeling like? And what am I supposed to do with this? And then around age 5, another important step or phase in a child's life is when friends start becoming important and other children start really playing a role in their life. Next slide. Okay, so some telehealth interventions for this stage that I have found very beneficial are reading and utilizing puppets or stuffed animals. So the goal of both of these interventions is to allow the children to feel comfortable with telehealth counseling and to be able to build rapport through the screen. So I want to give a little bit of a story. I was working with a brand new client. I was given this client, he was 7 years old, and he was my first young client. And so I remember I got on the telehealth screen and his mom was there. And I said, hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Caitlin. And she told me her name. And then the child yelled his name, but he wasn't on the screen. And so he was very, very afraid to come on the screen. And so I had challenged him and I said, can you show me a funny face? So then he came on the screen really quick, made a funny face, and then got off. And so then from that point, we started having a silly face competition. And then he started to become more comfortable with me from that point on. So in the beginning, it might be challenging to even get a young kid to kind of engage on telehealth. So thinking about some of those aspects, being a little playful with them can really help. So as for reading, with this same 7-year-old, he really struggled with being the alpha in his group. He came from a military family, so his dad was deployed a lot. And it was his mom at home with his 3 brothers. So his 2 brothers, him, his older brother, and his younger brother. And his mom was concerned because she felt that he always needed to take control and that he felt that he needed to be the alpha. And when I talked to him about this, I'd asked him, I said, you know, I wonder why you're feeling that way. And he said, I need to protect my mom and I need to protect my brothers. And she had realized that he was only acting this way at home. So what I did was pulled out a book. And one of my favorite books is The What If Monster. And what I did was I read this book with him through the session, and we read it together. And then afterwards we talked about it. So the What If book kind of talks about feelings and interactions with other people. What if they bully me? What happens if they make me mad? And then what the book does is it kind of talks about one of the main characters, which is Johnny, and how Johnny kind of refocuses his thinking. Well, what if they just wanted to, be my friend and come up and talk to me? What if they wanted to do this instead? So I found that reading is very, very helpful in session, and it kind of like involves them a little bit more. So another one that I like to use, as I said, is a puppet or a stuffed animal. So I have this little stuffed animal bear that sometimes I bring to session. And I say that this is very helpful in this stage because sometimes a counselor to a young client might resemble a parent figure or a figure of authority. And when you take them into a counseling session, you don't want to be that person for them. You want to be their safe space. You want to be their open space. So one thing, if they're having like struggles talking to me about a situation at school, I've dealt a lot with bullying. I'll bring them in and I'll bring Mr. Teddy. And sometimes I'll say, hey, Mr. Teddy had a really hard day at school. Like, what do you think about that? What would you say to Mr. Teddy? And then the child can communicate through the animal instead of having to feel like they need to communicate through stuff like that with me.
And then for the same age group of 2 to 7, these 2 interventions can be used face-to-face, bubble breaths and safe kitchen. They're based on their mindfulness activities, so they're really useful to help kids calm down and kind of be more present in their bodies when they're feeling like big emotions, such as like angry, anxious, and overwhelmed. And like research does show that when taught and practiced regularly, mindfulness improves mental health, overall well-being, mood, self-esteem, positive behaviors, and academic learning. Mindfulness activities for children are usually shorter than for adults, and we tend to focus more on concrete experiences. It's easier for them to understand and for them to be engaged. So the first technique, bubble breaths, is used when the therapist begins by blowing bubbles with a child. And it's, lighthearted, it's fun. Kids usually enjoy it. And the therapist will explain that they make the bubbles bigger by taking deep breaths, by blowing in slowly into the hoop. And then these are your bubble breaths. And bubble breaths are very powerful, and they can chase away feelings of worry or fear, anger, anxiety. And the child will continue to practice bubble breaths and make them as big as they possibly can by taking in really deep, slow breaths. This technique is just a great and easy way to introduce mindful breathing, especially to young kids. And it's something that they remember. So if they start to feel overwhelmed and overstimulated, you can just be like, let's pause, let's get our bubbles, let's take some bubble breaths. And it helps them calm their bodies, calm their mind. And then the second activity is Safe Kitchen. This one was really helpful for one of my clients. She just turned 5. She lives in a constant state of like anxiety and fear. Her house was shot at. She was sexually abused, so she doesn't feel safe just day to day. So when she comes into session, as Caitlin was saying, she doesn't really feel comfortable. She's really worried. She doesn't want to get in trouble. So we just start with the Safe Kitchen exercise, and we use it each week. So with this one, the counselor will prompt the child to imagine themselves in any kitchen they want. It could be real, it could be, made up, and it could be, and anyone can be in there with them. So like their mom, their dad, a sibling, a friend, and usually the people they list, they consider to be safe. So that's just important to make note of, who they consider safe in their life. So once they describe their kitchen to you, you can then ask them, like, let's make your favorite dessert. What is it? You could talk about different desserts, different ingredients, toppings, fillings, anything like that, to keep them engaged, keep it fun. And then throughout the activity, you will ask the child to take a deep breath in through their nose and exhale through their mouth. And you will use that dessert that you're making to say, like, take a deep breath in and let's smell the cookies. Oh, the brownies are done baking. Let's take a deep breath in and smell the brownies. And kids really do enjoy it. It makes them excited, and it's another way for it to be at like age appropriate, to teach them how to breathe, how to calm their bodies, how to remember like, you're safe here, let's take some deep breaths. So with that client I mentioned earlier, each session we sit on the floor and we're like, do you remember your cookies? Like, let's take a deep breath, let's smell them. Are they still chocolate chip? Are they like sugar cookies? Are they like sprinkles? And usually it takes about 5 minutes, and that helps calm her body. So both of these activities can be useful to teach kids the power of breathing and how mindfulness can help calm them overall. Okay, and the concrete operational stage is the next one in Piaget's theory. It includes kids age 7 to 11 years old, and oh, sorry, I'm having, my Wi-Fi is pausing. One second.
You want me to take the
Hey, Dallas,
presentation? Because we can still hear you, Dallas. Can
Oh,
you not
okay.
hear us?
Yeah, it's like fuzzing and going in and out.
Okay.
is the screen fuzzing? Like
Because you look good from our end.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, 1 second. One second.
And I know we have people who just came into this room, and I just want to let you know that Dallas and Caitlin have been presenting, and they're just working out some technical issues at the moment.
Dallas, if you want me to, I can share our presentation if that makes it easier for you. And then.
Yeah, sorry, we just got new IT stuff. So, okay, wait, I think it's been an issue. Okay, it's back. It looked
Okay.
like it was about to drop because it was connecting. So I was just worried. Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. Just let me know, okay? If you need me to take it. Okay.
Good. Okay.
You're good.
So this is the third stage of Piaget's theory. The concrete operational covers kids 7 to 11 years old. And this is when they begin to think more logically about concrete events. Children in this stage, they start to understand the concept of conservation. So for example, the amount of liquid in a short wide cup can be equal to the amount of liquid in a tall skinny glass. Their thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very literal overall. And then the children begin using inductive logic, and we tend to see a decrease in egocentric attitudes at this time.
Well, all I have to say is that I can't wait for that with my kid. So, okay. Anyways, little humor. Moving forward with telehealth interventions for this stage from 7 to 11. So what I have found very, very helpful with this stage is utilizing art and utilizing games. So this stage is kind of crazy, right? So when you have your younger kids that may be a little bit more shy and like are kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to come on the screen, or I don't know if my 7+ kids, 7 to 11 kids are all over the place on telehealth. They're on their mom's phone, running around the house. I'm counseling curtains. I'm counseling the TV. I'm counseling Paw Patrol. I don't know. Many, many, many different things. So one thing that I have really enjoyed is what's called a 6-image art sequence. And it was created by Carolyn Melomakulu. And so what this 6-image art sequence is a whole drawing sequence for the whole session. So the first part of it is a scribble warm-up, and you say you'll do this for about 5 minutes. So the scribble warm-up is just to get the child to start drawing, scribbling, picking their colors, picking their whatever it'll be, pens, pencils, coloring pencils, crayons. And I want you to keep in mind when you utilize this, I work with a lot of lower socioeconomic status children. So sometimes over telehealth versus in person, I can't provide that for my client. So it is really, really important to ensure that whatever your client has is good enough. So one of my clients had said, hey, I only have a pencil. And I said, that's okay. That's okay, because you can still draw with that. So normalizing what they have, because they might not have crayons or markers. So anyways, back to the art sequence. So you'll do a scribble warm-up, scribbling, squiggly lines, whatever they want, and just allowing them to start getting comfortable. Now, the second one is, I want you to draw happiness. Now, Carolyn's original intention for the sequence is to draw abstract. So no faces, no words, just utilizing colors and abstract photos. I sometimes allow faces for my younger kids because that might be what they only understand. But try and keep it abstract. And then for the next one, it's anger. Draw out anger. Is that a red cloud with black rain? Or what does that look like to you? And then the next one is anxiety or fear. And again, these could fluctuate with time. It might take them only 2 minutes to color a sunshine or to color any sort of abstract art image for happiness. So the next one would be sadness or depression. And then the last one is how you feel today. Draw out how you feel today. And how they feel today could be a mix of those. Could be, are we going to mix together the anxiety and sadness, or the fear and the depression? Or are we happy today? So once you're done with all of those drawings, what you'll do is you'll compare them next to each other. What kind of comparison do you see between the anger and the anxiety or the depression? You see maybe they used a darker, more filled in scribble for depression and fear, or something along those lines. So just making those correlations with the child really involves them in the session. And it really also helps if the counselor themselves draws with them. I always draw with my clients because they always like to see what you're doing too. And it helps them feel more comfortable. So another intervention is games. So I always start session, because sometimes they'll come on and they'll be like, I don't want to do this today. I've been told that. I don't want to be here today. And I'm like, okay. I said, how about if we play a game? And they're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So there's many games we can play. One of my favorites is an at-home scavenger hunt. And I'll just pick random stuff to say, okay, first we're going to find something soft. And then maybe they'll bring me a blanket or a stuffed animal. Or maybe I'll say, hey, can you bring me something blue? And we'll see what they bring me. So with the at-home scavenger hunt, it's kind of trying to get into the groove of like, who is this little person? Who is this client? Because when they go and they pick something out, that means that something means something to them. So if I pick something soft and I bring my favorite teddy, you know that's important to them in their life. A couple other games that I've utilized is Simon Says. So this game is really important because it allows the children to be the leader, but it also teaches them how to follow directions. Because when it's my turn, I'm the one that says, Simon says, touch your nose. Simon says, touch your head. But then when they are allowed to be Simon, it gives them a little bit more control. And then it makes them feel like that this is their time. And this is their time to say what they want to say.
Okay, so the two face-to-face interventions for kids 7 through 11 are the handling anger box and surf the angry sea. In my experience, kids around this age, with the population I work with, there tends to be a lot of anger, a lot of defiance, a lot of irritable behavior, like moods. So I thought it would be fitting to focus these two on handling and managing anger. And a lot of children who have been traumatized often carry a lot of anger. Their anger with things, with what has happened to them, how it's changed their life, how they like everything seems so out of their control, how they live in chaos. So it is pretty typical to see a lot of children struggling with anger. The first one, handling anger box, provides a healthy and acceptable ways for children to release that anger. The therapist will need to plan ahead for this one and bring in a box for the child to decorate using markers, crayons, color pencils, stickers, any art like supplies. Then they will help the child identify what makes them angry. And this can be, being punished, thinking about what's happened to them, when they mess up, being called names, anything along those lines. And then when talking about those things, the counselor, should validate and like affirm, like, it's okay to be angry. Like, that would make me angry and stuff and things like that. But it's how you handle it. It's your behavior afterwards. So fighting, throwing things, breaking things just make the situation worse. And then that can kind of transition into exploring ways or activities that will help the child with their anger and making those age appropriate and like safe choices. So for example, some of the kids I see, they like to tear up recyclable paper or scribble on paper. They like to stomp their feet. If you live on the first floor or like go outside, they can stomp their feet. Or squeezing like a ball, like the sensory toys. That really helps them get that tension out, still be in the room. So just exploring that with the child, see what they think, what works, what, if anything, has worked in the past. And then write those activities down on little pieces of paper and place that in the box for the child and their caregiver to use at home. And then as the therapist, you can consider putting in additional materials, such as if they do like to scribble on paper, put in a pen and like markers and some paper in the box for them so it's easily accessible. If they do want to squeeze a ball, like give them a sensory toy to leave in the box. Often kids like to blow bubbles, so having that there as well. The goal is to have the materials easily accessible, which will then encourage the child and their caregiver to utilize them and use appropriate behaviors to handle their anger. And then another option is Surf the Angry Sea. And this is more of a CBT-based exercise. So the child will picture their anger as a wave, and the counselor would teach them to ride that wave instead of letting it crash and take over them. So the therapist will prompt the child to draw the wave however they want. It could be really big, it could be scary, it could be small and tame. And they draw their wave and then they draw themselves. And it's interesting to see, how big their wave is compared to how big they draw themselves, or how little they are, how violent their wave looks. So it just shows more insight into like kind of how they're feeling and how big their feelings are compared to like what they think they can handle. And working through this, the counselor can also explore like what makes you angry, like what helps you feel better. And they can end by discussing different ways to handle that anger. So with both of these, the overall goal is to help the child understand those feelings and find appropriate ways of dealing with their anger. So the formal operational stage is the last stage of Piaget's theory. And this begins around age 11 and lasts into adulthood. Like as we mentioned, Caitlin and I see, teens, which will end around 18. So for the purpose of this presentation, we'll be focusing on interventions for clients aged 11 to 18. And at this stage, there is an increase in logic, an increase in the ability to use deductive reasoning and to understand abstract ideas. Adolescents, they are more capable of seeing multiple and potential solutions to the problems and think more scientifically about the world around them. At this stage, they are better able to strategize and to plan and think about their future. Adolescents also begin to think more morally, philosophically, ethically, socially, and politically about different issues.
Okay, so telehealth interventions for, like Dallas had said, my agency that I work for, we see up to 17 years old, just because we are a state-funded program, so we can't see technically 18-year-olds. So I only work with up to 17, and let me tell you, I was so excited to get my first teen client because I was like, oh, they're going to want to talk to me. This is going to be great. Like, it's going to be easier than the younger kids because they'll like be sitting in front of me, like paying attention. No. Okay. So they're just as hard to get to open up, if not harder, to gain that trust and build that rapport with them. And a lot of teens that I've worked with have trouble with expressing their emotions in a healthy format. So a lot of them that I come, say, hey, I'm getting really angry at my family and I'm lashing out. Or I have a lot of teens that struggle with anxiety and depression, and they're not really sure like why or anything. They're not sure why they're feeling this way. Why is my heart pounding as fast as it does when I feel anxious? Why am I starting to sweat? Why? I don't know. And then they become a person that they don't understand. So one intervention that I like to use a lot during this stage is journaling. And I kind of struggled back and forth if I wanted to put this on as an intervention or not, because it's not 100% utilized in session. So I had a teen client and she struggled with her anger, and she had said, I don't really know what happens when I become angry or why I become angry. And so we had talked about journaling, and she really wanted to give journaling a try. And so what I always open the door to journaling is, when you start feeling those body sensations. So I always like to ask, hey, when you're getting angry, where do you feel that in your body? Does your head start to hurt? Or like I had the one client say, hey, my heart was racing, or something like that. Utilizing the journaling aspect of that can help regulate their emotions. So say if they start feeling their shoulders tense, hey, I'm going to go grab my journal and I'm going to write down, hey, on this day, at this time, if they even want to get that specific, I felt this happen because of X, Y, and Z, because I watched a scary movie. And then once they start listing those out, you can kind of start seeing where those triggers are coming from. And that's when you can be proactive and have really impactful counseling with them. I also always keep the door open for them to share what they've journaled, but I never force that. So I've had a client say, hey, I would really like to share with you what I wrote down yesterday. Okay, When I gave them homework, I checked in and said, hey, how was that journaling yesterday? But I never asked them or said, hey, what did you write down? Hey, how did that activity go for you? Did you find some relief? How was that? Were you able to express your anger or your anxiety? Did it help? Or things along those lines. So I feel like journaling is a little bit more outside of the counseling space, but it can really be productive inside of the counseling space. And so one of my favorite activities that I like to do is called exploding balloons. So this activity spurs some deep thinking about the importance of releasing pent up anger in a healthy way. So if I was in person, I have a balloon. If I'm over telehealth, I have a balloon, but like in person, the client could have a balloon. So this could be used either in person or over telehealth. So what they do is we ask them to think about a situation that made them angry. So my brother ate my whole pint of ice cream and it made me really angry. And this would be a situation where they felt like they weren't able to talk through how that situation made them feel. So what we would do is instruct the team to blow into the balloon and have them repeat this process until the balloon is like very, very big. Now, you can either have the balloon pop, which I don't do myself. I just have them get it really big. But it's supposed to show that all of that anger and it's building, 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 building. And what's it going to do? It's going to explode. So it gives them that visual. Hey, this is how I'm going to be if I don't release any of that anger. So you have them release all that air or let the balloon explode. And then on their second balloon, you'll have them blow it up in the same way. Anything that makes them angry, a situation that made them angry. And then we're going to kind of walk them through that anger situation and they'll slowly release air from the balloon. So then at the end of releasing or talking or utilizing whatever they can use, journaling for that expression, their balloon would be back to normal. And then there wouldn't be any sort of exploding. So the goal of these interventions is to have them, like I said, have a healthy outlet and not explode on any loved one or feel like they don't know who they are themselves.
And then here are the two face-to-face interventions that we can use. One, the first one being core beliefs. Well, since, at this age, like middle school, high school level, the clients are able to think, more deeply, more abstractly, more critically. So as a therapist, we can challenge them a little bit more and just explore their mind a little bit more. And we can do that through core beliefs. And like each client has had unique experiences that shape who they are and shape their behavior, how their mind works. So core beliefs is another CBT based worksheet, and it will challenge their beliefs by helping the client develop a healthier understanding of themselves and the world around them. And the therapist can use this worksheet to help educate clients and get them to think about how their thoughts affect their mood and then how it affects their behavior. This worksheet explains core beliefs as sunglasses, and that everyone has a different shade that causes them to see things differently. So for example, you meet a new person and you think of asking them to hang out, go on a date, get coffee, anything like that. Someone with a negative core belief might think that they are not worthy or lovable. And they'll think, why would anyone want to hang out with me or spend time with me? And that will impact their behavior by not inviting that person to hang out. In contrast, someone with positive core beliefs will believe, oh, I am worthy. I'm a likable person. I deserve to have friends. And it will produce those positive thoughts, which will result in them asking that person to hang out. And this can be especially challenging with adolescents, just because middle and high school is a tough time for them with their identity, with friends, figuring out who they are. It can be all very confusing and hard. So just kind of tracking, where are these thoughts coming from? So after explaining more about core beliefs to the client, you can then explore how they're feeling, if they can identify at least one negative core belief. And that could just be, I'm not likable, I'm not lovable, no one wants to be around me. And then try to find at least 3 pieces of evidence that do not support that core belief. And with this in mind, you can adjust it based on, their age. If it's a 12-year-old struggling to make friends, or a 16-year-old, worried about asking someone out, not really fitting in, you can make this unique to their situation, which makes it more applicable to them. So the second activity is based on social support. And social support helps. And this activity will help the client learn about social support, how important it is to have a support system. And you can, as a therapist, we can offer some psychoeducation on the importance, the different types, and how to build social support. Some of the benefits include improved physical health, greater resilience to stress, feeling of security, and just a sense of belonging. So there are 4 types of social support. There's emotional, which is someone who helps you manage, emotions such as stress, anger, depression. There's tangible support, and this is help with practical problems like financial assistance or giving you a ride, things like that. There's informational support, and this is providing information to solve a problem or overcome a challenge. And this can be just like giving advice, someone you go to for advice or go to for extra information. And lastly, there's social needs support, and that is the fulfillment of basic social needs like love, belonging, connectedness, which gives off feelings of security and contentment. So you can kind of explore that with the adolescent and explain how to build social support if they feel like they don't have one. So looking at their current relationships like friends, families, making it a priority to reach out to friends and family. Can they increase community involvement through like hobbies, volunteering, religious groups? Can they attend support groups? Because I know on my site here, they have groups for, depending on the age, for like anger or like loss, grief, things like that for kids, for adolescents. So attending support groups. And then lastly, like professional support through therapists, social workers, doctors, and so on. So after kind of going through this and explaining this to the adolescent, you can ask them to describe their support system and what it looks like, how they help, how they feel supported. And you can explore potential barriers that would prevent them from utilizing their social support. And with both of these, it just helps the client be more mindful of themselves, more aware of themselves, and giving them a sense of support moving forward. And if you're interested in the core beliefs worksheet, you can feel free to email me, and I can send that out. Okay. So filial therapy is a child-centered relationship enhancement family therapy where parents learn to conduct one-on-one child-centered play sessions with their own children. This approach is designed to allow children to take initiative and freely express themselves and foster self-regulation and independence. And through that, parents are asked to acknowledge their child's initiative, their behavior, and their expression. And parents want to do this with acceptance and not with any judgment. The way this works is there'll be weekly play sessions, and children will improve their self-concept, gain mastery, and learn to take responsibility for their actions by becoming more aware of their feelings and motivations. And then on the parent side, they will learn to trust their child and encourage their child to be independent. The play sessions will help bond the parents and their child and create a more open relationship with each other and improve their relationship overall. And the goal is for relationship building to improve and reduce conflict and negativity, but also improve family stability. This modality uses child-centered play therapy techniques, and it's based on the idea that the children use toys to express themselves and that toys are their inner voice. And there are a few principles of child-centered play therapy that are important to know, such as letting the child lead the session, letting them, or understanding that play therapy is a gradual process, and sometimes kids take a few sessions before they're ready to open up. Like Caitlin has mentioned, they don't really want to talk, or they struggle to talk in the beginning. So just allowing them to feel comfortable and being patient with them. And then only setting limits when it's necessary. So a lot of times when we get new kids in here, we say, in the playroom, you make the choices, unless you're gonna, hurt yourself, hurt me, or intentionally break something. Like those aren't choices you can make. So they get to play, they get to pick what they play with. They get to decide if they want to clean up afterwards. They can play alone, they can play with us, things like that. So with that, the goal is to create an atmosphere where the child feels safe, where they feel accepted, and they can just play. They don't have to worry. As therapists, and something to remind the parents is to avoid criticizing their play, avoid questioning and interrupting them during their play.
I think another little important aspect to that is that, Dallas did say it does take time. It does take a lot of time, but you'll also notice when you do work with kids, they might show you themes that they don't know that they're expressing through play that you can pick up on. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. If they're playing with dolls, are they showing that, one doll is hitting this other doll? Where could that be stemming from? So that's also another important factor to remember. So we're going to talk about, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but some challenges with face-to-face and virtual counseling. So definitely with virtual counseling, there is a lot of issues with technology. Again, I said I work with lower socioeconomic status. Some people don't have the technology to, they don't have a computer, they don't have internet. So we do have some services where we do offer case-by-case, face-to-face. But technology has been a really big issue. And then also incorporating, if you are using technology, ensuring that you're using ethical documentation, that you are not in a counseling office and you are counseling remotely. That is important for the client to know, and important for the counselor to be understanding of that. And then I hope that these telehealth interventions, if you are in telehealth and working with kids, my heart goes out to you. Make sure that I hope these are helpful for you and that can keep them energized and can keep them engaged in the session.
And another challenge to be aware of is compassion fatigue, whether you're doing telehealth or in person. As counselors, we're prone to it. We hear a lot of traumatic things. We deal with a lot of hard stuff, and it's, every day, it's every hour, it's a lot. So compassion fatigue can be described as burnout plus the accumulation of stress resulting from empathizing with clients over time. And counselors that work with a high frequency of trauma exposures increase the likelihood of developing compassion fatigue. And due to the pandemic, a lot of counselors had to transition to telehealth, which can also contribute to compassion fatigue. In past literature, there is this thing called video conferencing fatigue, and it was a phenomenon reported by a wide variety of people who were required to sit at a computer for work without training and how to avoid the stress on their eyes, and general fatigue and pain in their bodies. But more recently, that phenomenon was switched to Zoom fatigue. So it's something that has been researched, it has been written about, and it is a real thing that many people go through. Someone experiencing compassion fatigue can feel loss of meaning and hope, and they can have really strong reactions that are associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, such as feelings of anxiety, difficulty sleeping, excessive emotional numbing, intrusive images of another person's trauma, and things like that. Compassion fatigue is a really serious issue that a lot of us need to be mindful of. We're all at risk. And then knowing this, it is essential to combat compassion fatigue through various outlets of self-care. Firstly, having a strong support system through family, friends, or community groups. Practicing mindfulness has been shown to help reduce compassion fatigue by increasing your self-awareness and reducing stress and anxiety. Research also shows the effects of diet, physical activity, and sleep on how that impacts our mood and can improve our overall mood. It's also something to be mindful of are high levels of caffeine and sugar, which are linked to symptoms of depression. And then physical activity does help increase levels of serotonin and dopamine, which can reduce the depressive symptoms. It's important to remember that participating in activities that bring you joy, such as reading, gardening, knitting, writing, whatever it may be, it is important and it is not selfish. It's something we need to do to take care of ourselves so we can continue, to be happy and continue to do the work that we do. And lastly, seeking additional support from professionals can be useful, and it is okay. It could be helpful for us to identify, address, and reframe any self-destructive attitudes or behaviors that may be contributing to compassion fatigue, or general burnout, or even depression. Some professionals believe that the neglect of self-care has the potential to be one of the greatest disservices counselors can do to themselves, their loved ones, and their clients. So it's essential to remember the importance for counselors to address their own personal needs for their health and their well-being before addressing the needs of others.
We don't have time to complete our activity that we had for today. So we are going to jump to any questions y'all might have before the next presenter needs to come in. We do appreciate everyone who came to our presentation today. And again, if you have any questions, I think we'll be in the room for a few more minutes.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Dallas. I'm just going to quickly post in the chat for everyone here before you start answering those questions, maybe the CE, if anyone's looking for continuing education credits, you can answer the questions in the chat and that will be taken care of by the administration. Let me see if, can you see those questions? Wait 1 second. Not yet. Okay, so we'll go like this. Just a moment. So yeah, if anyone has questions, maybe we can open it for questions now, but at the same time, you can answer those things in the chat if you're looking for CEs. Thank you. So yeah, in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I can briefly go over I see that someone asked about describing the activity. So basically, the activity is called What's in Your Heart? And this can be done face-to-face or virtually. Again, with virtual, you can either send your client the PDF of a heart. So basically, you print out this heart and you give it to your client. And what you're going to do is you're going to ask your client, say, hey, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what things make your heart happy, and what things make them feel, what makes you feel good, and what words would you use to describe these like really good feelings, and like what images come to mind, what colors. So this kind of plays along through more of the art therapy, play therapy route, but this allows just for them to kind of express. It's kind of another version of like them pulling out what's important to you. What's important to you. So like in my heart, it might have like a face of a dog because I have 2 dogs, or I love the color blue. So I might scribble in with the color blue. So that was basically the activity we were going to go through with all of you.